What is going on, Cover One crew? Welcome back to the show. Hope everybody is good, man. It's been a while since we've done a full-length feature, baby, but the offseason is coming, even though we got NFL playoffs. We got playoffs coming, baby. I can't wait. Got my guy in the house. It's been too long, man. Eric Sojash in the house. Sojash Sports. What is going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having us. It's been a while, man. We always keep in touch, but yeah, we haven't done one of these in a minute. Can't wait to dive in. It's been fantastic. Fantasy season flew by. I know we both had some ups and some downs this season, but man, that flew by. I can't believe how fast that went. I'm going to do a couple of those playoff pools. Can't wait to get those started. And yeah, just, talk football and get the season rolling. Can't wait to see those Eagles take off, and hopefully we can take care of those Packers this weekend.
It's going to be interesting stuff. The season does go by. It seems faster every single year. It's unbelievable. I'm a two-time champion, like you guys know. Eric, I think you got two as well this year. It's been a good year.
Yes, sir.
We got some good debates, though. I'm telling you, we were going through, me and Eric, we talk a lot via text, and we debate a lot of things. That's why I'm wearing Josh Allen today, not only because we're in the playoffs, but we're talking who's the MVP, league MVP for quarterbacks. Obviously, Saquon is in the mix. I know you are a super Philly fan, but we know it's a quarterback award. It's going to be between Josh Allen, my guy, and a Lamar Jackson. And I know you wanted to do a little flip on the script and say, I voice the opinion for Lamar, you voice it for Allen. But, the case can legit be made for both of them. And I'm not going to hate on Lamar. I know I tweeted out some stuff, and I get it, okay? I like Lamar, always have. A lot of I'll start with Lamar. How about we do that, and then you can go to Allen, then we'll go to who we actually think is true. So, for me, this is the best statistical season for Lamar. No question, he balled out, and I went on record early on in the offseason suggesting this was Baltimore's best opportunity to gain that Super Bowl if they ever had one. Yes, with Lamar Jackson. We've seen a team with Baltimore that has, run with great defense, and that carries them. They're always a run-heavy team. Lamar's always been a rushing, pedigree quarterback, gotten over 1,200 yards back in 2019. This year, just under 1,000 yards. His stats are good, man. One of his highest passing attempts, 474, 66%, almost 4,200 yards. First-time 4,000-yard passer, by the way, for Lamar Jackson in his 6-year career. 41 TDs to only 4 interceptions. I get it, man. Okay, I understand the arguments that everybody's saying, but you know what? Okay, and what did they go? 12-5, and they are in the playoffs in the wildcard round, just like my Bills. It's a great season. I'm not going to say this, okay? But I'm telling you, okay, you got Zay Flowers, you got Mark Andrews, and you got basically the similar cast of characters that we've seen with these Ravens. My argument is with Derrick Henry, okay? We haven't seen Lamar go to this level, and it's not a knock on Lamar Jackson. We've discussed this before. What it is, in my opinion, it's like any other superstar talent that comes to your team. He's going to eventually uplift the entire team. This is what Derrick Henry did, and this is why I was so bullish on these Baltimore Ravens going into the season, believing that Derrick Henry would make this offense that much better, which he did. What did he get? 1,800 rushing yards himself. He made life very simple for a Lamar Jackson, in my opinion. As silly as that sounds, it's the NFL. But he did make Lamar's life a lot easier than we have seen in the past. Play action pass, it was basically automatic. RPOs, automatic. Lamar wants to take off, he's running free. You cannot guard both these guys. And that was the MO of these Baltimore Ravens with Monken and getting Derrick Henry, a true 3-down, power, hard-nosed running back who can still go long distance, man. He hasn't lost much wheels in his old age. It is the best season we've seen from Lamar Jackson. He is a 2-time MVP, and you know how angry I get when we talk about Lamar's last MVP, where his first one I can make the argument to say, yeah, it was his MVP season, 36 TDs that year as well. But, the last one he did win, I do believe that was Josh Allen's, and I think he got kind of screwed on that one. And this year, subsequently, like we were talking, Lamar's one of his worst statistical seasons, and he is the favorite, and I'll tell you why after you dive into or to Josh Allen. But Lamar is definitely deserving, but I do think it's Josh Allen time.
Yeah, great points. I think a lot of them are valid. We've gone back and forth a few times on those. I do think Derek has made life a lot easier for Lamar, but I do think that also goes vice versa. He's made life a lot easier for Derek. I also do think that in terms of his passing pedigree, taking another step, I agree the play action pass has been there, which opens it up. If you play any sort of Madden, like if you can get those linebackers to suck up a little bit, throwing it over the top is so much easier. So just from a video game standpoint, I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of what the life has made for easier for Lamar in this year. Overall, though, I do want to give him a bump in terms of his passing, taking that step to 4,000 yards. Zay Flowers is a fantastic receiver. He's still not in that elite category. He's still not a guy that totally pulls coverage and that keeps defensive uh, coordinators up at night. So I do think because the receiving core is decent, not amazing, tight end. There was a point in this season where we were questioning if Mark Andrews was even going to be on the team. So I do want to give Lamar his flowers in terms of the passing pedigree that he's. I think he's taken another step just in terms of him reading defenses pre and post snap. Him in terms of him escaping the pocket, not just to run but looking to pass. We've seen him do that a couple times this season, more than in the past. So I do want to give him his flowers there. But overall, yeah, I've gone back and forth. I think this is Josh's MVP. I don't want to go catch you off guard with my stance here, but truthfully, I went back and forth with it. We've debated in text. I think it's a simple point here. If you're going to go off of the precedence that has been set in the past, which is a good precedence to go off of, the exact reason you gave Lamar Jackson the MVP last year is the exact reason you have to give it to Josh this year. Better team record. When he played against the best, the most elite competition on the other side of the ball, he was the best player on the field. When Josh went against Kansas City Chiefs, the one team nobody can beat, he's the guy that beat him. So it wasn't even the Bills that beat him. That's my opinion. I know you're a Bills fan. You might take that one to heart. I don't even think the Bills beat the Chiefs. I think Josh Allen beat the Chiefs. And for that reason, I'd give him the MVP. And then when he went against Detroit, back and forth, absolute shootout. They couldn't stop us, a nosebleed on defense. He had to keep responding. So for those reasons, just like Lamar last year, it wasn't necessarily statistics. It's how it looked with the eye test. It's how the team produced. They were the number one team. And then it's how it looked when they went against San Francisco. Everybody said, wow, look at what he did against the best team in the league. This is the best player this year. For that exact reason, you got to give it to Josh. Look what he did against the best teams in the league. He's the best player in the league this year. I give him that MVP. And you know how me and you go back and forth on that one. So I might have caught you off guard with that stance.
Always.
But I can't say something that I don't feel. So that's where I'm at. That's where I land on that. I do think it is his just for those reasons.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very difficult to disagree because, I mean, what we've seen from Josh Allen over the years, his best statistical seasons, I mean, he's a 4,500-yard passer, almost 40 TDs himself. He's running the football all the time. This year, what made it different for me, and I mean, we had this conversation in the offseason as well between the two of us, and you asked me, and admittedly, I will say it, live on this, you asked me, you said, is Josh Allen going to be the MVP this year? And I said, no, I really didn't think so because of, the mantra that everybody eats. They were going to win as a team. They were going to, spread the football around. And it didn't, make me say that, the Bills were, I wasn't on the, bandwagon like a majority of the media pundits being like, the Bills are going to regress, the window's closing for Josh. I said, hell no, as long as you have Josh Allen, it's no different. As long as you had Aaron Rodgers back in Green Bay, the window's always open. I just thought that this team was going to be a little different. I thought there might be a little more grinding. But there wasn't. They didn't miss a beat. They were the highest scoring Bills team in team history with no real, number one wide receiver to speak of. Diggs out the door. So this just, says everything to what Josh Allen can do with a lesser cast. That's number one for me. It's Allen, and then he's the one spreading it to everybody else. But I do have to be fair in the sense where I say Derrick Henry, uplifted the offense for Lamar. James Cook absolutely freaking played it lights out this year. 16 TDs, right? I mean, over 1,000 yards, and he is one of the reasons why this Bills team does work the way it does. The offensive line, kudos to them. They are one of the best in the league as well. Open up these lanes, which makes life easier for Josh as well. He's one of the least sacked quarterbacks in the league this year, which is a far cry from what we've seen in the past as well. Not only that, Josh, he's taking his turnovers down. The turnovers never really bothered me when everyone say, oh, he's such a turnover machine. Okay, out of a 17, 18-game season, maybe it cost the Bills, twice, maybe 3 times because of Josh Allen's turnovers. How many games did he win on his own in those seasons as well? So for me, the difference this year also is when he did have to put the cape on, like you said, he put the cape on versus the top competition, and he didn't disappoint, man. The Rams, the Chiefs, the Lions, I mean, we've seen it all season long. Even though they lost to the Rams, I think that was one of his best games I've ever seen as a Buffalo Bill or an NFLer. But for me, it is Josh Allen. I think he is finally deserving, under 4,000 yards, under 30 TDs, only the 6 interceptions. But I mean, he is legitimately playing the best football I think we've seen overall as a quarterback in his career.
Yeah, this is definitely the best he's played. I think we are kind of splitting hairs. You know, if you do give Lamar the MVP, it's not an outlandish choice in terms of what he's done, what the team has done, and their trajectory. But just based on the precedents, like we were saying, team record, what he's had to do with a lesser cast around him, I think it's definitely Josh. And then in terms of like, he hasn't necessarily had to be the Superman that they've asked him to be in the past, but he's had to be the most consistent player on that team. He's had to be the point guard of the offense, and he's the guy that everyone's game planning for. We love what Cook's done. Cook's doing that because the defenses are terrified of Josh Allen. We definitely know this. As much as we're going to give Cook his flowers and he deserves it, it's the fear of what Josh can do out the back. It's the fear of Josh breaking a sack and throwing it 50 yards downfield to whoever he chooses. It doesn't even have to be a premier receiver. We see him do that to, I think it was not even your pass catching running back. It was your other running back. What's his name again right now? I'm drawing a blank.
Ray Davis.
Ray Davis. I think I saw him catch like a 40-yard pass earlier this season.
That's
so
right.
It doesn't matter who it is. If Josh can break the pocket, buy some time, he'll find any receiver downfield. He's an absolute threat no matter where he is on the field. And in the past, they did use that against him, saying, he's just as much of a threat to hurt your team as he is to help. I think that was overblown, and he's tailored that way back now. He's not just trying to make the big play every time. I think he understands the position he's in now. I think he understands the kind of like the overall situation that's going on. He knows like the outcome that he's seeking, the best way to get there, the defense he has, the O-line he has, the run game he has, the coaching staff. I think he really has put it all together where he knows he doesn't need to get it in every play. They will live to fight another down. Even in, like you're saying, the Rams game, we might disagree a little bit there. I thought he started off a little cold. He missed a couple throws I thought that were easy. He had a little bit to do with why they kind of fell into that hole, not because necessarily he played poorly, but because the defense didn't hold their own and he couldn't answer right away. But then he did in the second half, and he showed you what he's capable of. So for that reason, I think they're never out of a game, and I think he understands that now. So he's kind of tempered his risk taking. Let's say he's put that into check, and he's a whole different player. And I definitely think this is the MVP to give it to him, no doubt about it.
It's actually funny you say that because it is true that he did start slow versus the Rams. You go back to Week 1 versus Arizona Cardinals, the Bills were down like 21-3 or something versus Kyler Murray. This team has been a second half team basically the entire season. It's like they try to get through the first. It's weird. They get through the first half and then just turn it on in the second half, and then it's lights out. Josh Allen starts to make plays, but I mean Joe Brady. Again, Sean McDermott, these guys, I mean, they deserve a lot of credit. We'll see what Sean does in the playoffs. Is he going to be uber conservative? But I love what Joe Brady brings with a Josh Allen, and I think it is the best we've seen. I was so happy when the Bills got Joe Brady from those Carolina Panthers, but MVP, baby! All you got to do is bring home a Super Bowl so I can put something on this trophy case in the back. Come on, Josh, we're dying for it, no question. But, I mean, there's an interesting, bunch of topics going on in the league. And, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., we know Marvin Harrison is my guy. I loved Marvin at OSU, Ohio State, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And I'm still not getting off this wagon. So many people are so disappointed, and rightfully so. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It was not a great season of expectation like you guys. It never hit the expectation mark like you guys had envisioned, especially in fantasy football, having him as a top 12 pick. I always said that was risky. You got to understand, but even though we see guys like Malik Neighbors balling out with lesser quarterbacks, you got Marvin Harrison this season. What do you have, man? 885 in receiving yards, 5th among rookies, 62 receptions, 6th among rookies, 116 targets, 4th among rookies, 8 TDs is where he did ball out. He was number 2 in that regard. But people are calling this guy a bust. And I think it's either you're going too high or too low. Come back in the middle just a little bit with me. Marvin Harrison is an absolute stellar product, and he is far from a bust. It's just this offense. It was the Trey McBride show, man. Like that's all Kyler Murray felt like he could do, and then it was Marvin Harrison taking the rest of the shots. So for me, I'm still we haven't even scratched the surface with a Marvin Harrison. So to call him a bust after this season, I think is absolutely ridiculous.
I think it's an overstatement, like just a drastic overstatement. We got years of production from Marvin coming out of college. This is not some like guy that just flashed on the scene. So we know what kind of talent he is. Obviously, we got the genetic makeup. He's a second generation superstar. His dad was no slouch. So like you can't just overlook that. I won't. I definitely won't. I'll be if people want to knock him down, perfect. I'll snatch him up in fantasy football. Few rounds further down the charts and see what I can do with him. But in terms of calling him a bust, that's too much, way too much. The guy has phenomenal talent. The speed it might be a question. His speed, we did wonder what he was in terms of his 40 time. We did wonder what he was in terms of his separation at the NFL level. I still think that's somewhat of a question. He hasn't shown that he's got some elite separation, but there was games where you did see it. I remember the game against Miami. He was going one-on-ones against Jalen Ramsey, crossing route. Jalen could not keep up with the foot speed. That's got to say something. And then just overall, you saw, like you said, 8 touchdowns, second for a rookie. That's pretty good production. In terms of targets, I don't know the number, but I guarantee his target share was a lot less than Malik Neighbors
Yep.
just from watching the game. So that's going to play a role. I don't think Tiger. I don't think Kyler was just looking at him and force feeding Marvin. There was even that whole thing after week 1 where they were wondering, does Kyler even know who Marvin Harrison Jr. is? And then he made a weird statement in his presser where he was like, it's not my job to necessarily do this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of done a whole 180 on that now. If you've seen recently, he's talking about this offseason, me and Marv are going to spend all day, all night together. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to be like roomies. I'm going to figure out exactly what he needs. He's going to figure out what I need. So there's a lot to be optimistic about going forward. Kyler's a super talent. Marvin's a super talent. We've seen Kyler have elite production in the past with a number 1 receiver. I think that was the reason people kind of reached so heavy for Marv. They assumed, well, he did it with D-Hop, so it's going to be like automatic. I guess that's where we kind of overreach. But eventually, I think that's going to be the outcome. I think there's more likeliness that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler will click and figure it out, and he can find his way into that top 10, top 12 to me than there is the likeliness that he'll just fade and be one of those, overranked, overdrafted players, and we call him a bust in like 2 or 3 years.
100%. And I mean, the top 3 wide receivers coming out of this draft was Marvin, was a Malik Neighbors, and then Rome Odunze. So you're even seeing kind of a similar type of situation, even though Rome, maybe you could give him a little bit lesser of critical, nature because of the fact there's Keenan, there's DJ Moore. Marvin just basically had Trey McBride. It's Greg Dortch, it's Michael Wilson. That's all you got in Arizona. So that's why everyone else was like, well, he's going to get peppered with targets. He got 116 targets. So that's on Kyler Murray and this offensive coordinator as well. You got to understand, man, Trey McBride 8, man. He got over 100 receptions this year, if I'm not mistaken. So there was a disconnect with how this offense did move. I will agree. There were some lazy, route cutoffs by a Marvin. The perfection and the precise nature of his game wasn't here. And that was a shock to me because maybe just because the college game came so easy to him because he was light years ahead of all those guys in college football. But I mean, now you're going up against grown-ass men, and you got to seriously tighten up your routes, be a little bit more efficient with what you're doing. The drops, man, there were some drops that were questioned for me as well, but there weren't as high as people were making it seem either. So when you're talking about a wide receiver who's got a big problem, we're not talking about QJ, man, Quentin Johnson over here. You got to understand, Marvin Harrison, he's learning on the fly as well. Well, Malik Neighbors definitely puts a bad case on it to say that he's, worse than Malik Neighbors at this point. But I mean, Marvin Harrison with this offense, how they're going to move, I'm still in, man. But I knew it was not going to, bring back the return on investment if we're top 12 for fantasy. But I mean, as a player in general, I mean, this guy's going to be a stellar product. There is no question in my mind. And everybody who's, questioning this, I mean, I'm still not ready to say, no to him just yet. I think it's still going to be lots of goods coming.
Definitely. I'm not off the train either. I definitely think there's lots of upside there. And like we've been saying, it was this nature of the offense. It was the way Kyler was looking. It was the way they were calling the game. A lot of James Conner again too. That doesn't mean Troy Benson, not to go too far off the topic, but that doesn't mean Troy Benson's necessarily a bust or somebody that doesn't have a
Mm.
high ceiling down the future. It was just a year that they didn't really need to rely on these players as much as we expected. A lot of the run game, a lot of the tight end. So, but the talent is there. We definitely saw it in college. And like I said, the genetics, don't sleep on that. When you're a
Mm.
second generation talent like that, he's been around the game since birth. He'll figure it out and he'll take off. This guy's not going to be just your average name. He's just too talented for that. And then another thing, he doesn't talk. He doesn't say
Mm.
anything. Like even Malik Neighbors has a couple lines, a couple things here and there that get the media's attention where
Mhm.
you're kind of focusing in on what he's doing. Marv's shy. He doesn't say a lot. So he's not really pushing the needle much. So I think that's another reason why people aren't really going to hype it up much. They're going to jump off a little quicker. He's not out there just boasting and saying, look at me. So, but football people, I think we know. Keep your eye on him. He's too talented to sleep on. He'll figure it out. He'll be back in the good graces sooner than later.
I'll take the discount gladly this season, man. You guys sleep all you want. I'll take the discount in a big way. There's no discount in these two players, man. Bijan Robinson and Jamyr Gibbs. Gibby, he's so damn good. This topic is so interesting to me because when I scouted these two gentlemen coming out of their draft class, similarly, obviously came out of that same draft class 2 years ago. And now that we got a good sample size on both these gentlemen, I think that, the conversation can be had because, what was basically putting it to the side was Gibby's in a split backfield where Bijan is the true 3-down back. I think now we can, from what we saw since Monty went down, and even with Monty and how, efficient Gibby has been all season, the sample size is definitely there, man. Gibby, let's break down these numbers, man. Running back 2 because of his 4-tutty performance, 336 points in fantasy, where Bijan he picked up the last 6-7 weeks. Unbelievable running aptitude, man. 311 points. So you're basically, 20 points off-ish, where Gibby was 250 attempts, 1,400 yards, 16 TDs, added 52 in the receiving game, 4 touchdowns, where Bijan was 304 for 1,456. So way more carries, similar yards, 61 receptions, 431, and 1 touchdown for a Bijan. Statistically speaking, it's like identical players, even though they possess completely different skill sets, where Bijan, this is the one thing I guess it makes me want to take a Bijan over a Gibby because just the body frame is put together a little bit more. We spoke about this before as well, that Bijan he knows how not to take hits. He's the volume, man. 304 plus 61. That's almost, you're creeping into 400 touch range for a Bijan second-year running back. And he really, I don't want to jinx the man, but he really never dealt with any injury ailment. He was always there, where we've seen Gibby kind of go down from time to time. And that's the one thing. You overwork a guy like Jamyr Gibbs, maybe eventually it's going to go down the wrong way. But with that said, he could be like an Alvin Kamara, where he's so damn good, so damn consistent, and injuries just don't follow the man because he's that good and he understands the game. You can't go wrong with either one of these guys, but we got to pick one, man. Where are you going with these guys?
And you're splitting hairs here. These two are phenomenal. These are two of the best running backs I've probably seen in the last 20 years.
Mm.
These guys are special, man. And we wanted to like them. I think they have that characteristic, that running style, that fan favorite running style that you naturally even want to cheer for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very likable running backs. Man, it's almost impossible to pick between the two. I think naturally I was leaning Gibby coming out just because I kind of liked him more in college in terms of just watching him, his running style, that acceleration. I've always been a Chris Johnson fan. You know that.
Yep.
Jamal Charles is a low-key player that I thought was special. This guy reminds me of those guys in terms of acceleration, his receiving game. Just when he turns the corner, if you don't have that angle, and I mean have it with absolute certainty, he is gone. And it's a special talent that he has. But the more you watch the game, the more you see it. Bijan Robinson is just kind of getting overlooked. The hype was so high coming out, and I think that Atlanta hasn't lived up to their
Mm.
expectation. If you want to ask me, I think they're the ones that are kind of holding him back more so than his talent. It's been the Atlanta offense. Yeah, I would kill to see Bijan Robinson with Ben Johnson, Jared Goff,
Ooh.
Amon Ra, Jameson clearing out lanes for him. I think Bijan would be special in that offense too. He doesn't have that second gear, but this man always falls forward. He can jump cut off any leg. His vision is pretty ridiculous, and like we said, he never takes any hits. This guy, the biggest hits that he's taken, I think, was back in college where he had that crazy scare with his neck.
Mm-hmm.
He learned. It looks like he learned.
Mm-hmm.
He's not putting his body in those opportunities to get that type of injury ever again. It doesn't even look like he's putting himself in any opportunity. He doesn't get folded up on. You know, those running backs always have those ankles that get rolled up on and folded. He just seems to always keep himself in a little ball, bounce off stuff, and just fall and roll. I just love the way he takes care of himself. So longevity-wise, I'd bank on Bijan just for that. But talent, these guys they're 1A, 1B. These guys are special. I think you're really splitting hairs when you talk about talent.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. you're taking elite and you're taking elite. Like, what else can you say? They're both unbelievable at their trade craft, and I mean, it is going to be interesting to me where Montgomery is 27 years of age. He's coming off a knee injury now. They're saying he is going to be available likely in the divisional round if they make it there. But this is, and I don't foresee them going away from a Montgomery, especially since how well they both run. I mean, you could literally start both these guys in fantasy football on the same bloody team. If you drafted both Gibby and Monty, you could legit start both of them, and you're getting yourself a good 30 points every single week. Like, that's how efficient the run game is in Detroit. So it's a perfect marriage between the two running backs, and that's kind of where you see, well, could Bijan get overworked? And it's like, it reminds me of a little bit like the Ricky Williams situation where he didn't have a whole heck of a lot to work with in Miami. He always had to be the one to carry it. Like, if you saw his presser leaving after they missed the playoffs, he was really distraught, man. He's saying, this is a very difficult situation. We just didn't get it done. But I mean, what did you really expect having a quarterback change from a Kirk Cousins who did not perform? He's likely going to be out the door with that big contract this offseason. Penix looked all right. I mean, it wasn't lighting the world ablaze, but he looked good. He was able to move the football down the field. And, I mean, they got pieces outside of Kyle Pitts. I don't know what the hell he's doing. He needs a change of scenery as well. Get him out of Atlanta. But, I mean, Drake London, you got Darnell Mooney. I'm a big fan, and they're just going to continue to add to this offense as well. Will Michael Penix be that guy? I think he's going to be roughly in that similar mode of above-average QBs until he learns a little bit more, and maybe he does get to a great level. Do I ever see, Penix becoming an elite quarterback? Probably not, but I think there is, great opportunity for him to at least move this offense in the right direction, and it all starts with Bijan, and you just got to hope that they continue to add pieces for this guy where Gibby's getting all the success right now because the Lions are so damn good. I want to see these Falcons. I'm a closet Falcons fan as well. So, I mean, I always loved watching them play with dudes like Julio and Dion and all those guys. So I'm always rooting for the guys in Atlanta. I mean, Bijan, to me, I still got to lean to that side just a tad. I mean, if we're talking fantasy football, you cannot go wrong with either one of these gentlemen. But at this point, if I'm going fantasy, I'll probably lean Gibby. If I'm going to go, real life, I'll probably take a Bijan. I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I'm probably with you on that. I think it's still really close for fantasy. I'd probably still lean Bijan. I actually think his trajectory is going up with the change at quarterback. Penix, like we were saying, the ceiling might not be super high. He doesn't seem to have the elite ceiling, but he at least pushes the ball. You want someone that's really going to push the ball. Incomplete or not, keep that box light. And that's what Bijan needs. And I like that for him. And I like the trajectory going forward with Penix at quarterback for Bijan. I would lean Bijan slightly over Gibbs just because, like we said, Monty's no slouch. He's still a top RB. If he's healthy and he's in this offense, they're still going to be splitting carries. I see that for the next couple of years at least.
Absolutely. And I mean, with Penix, you're absolutely right. And I mean, we know what he was able to do with the Washington Huskies, man. He was able to support 3 wide receivers to high-end levels. And my dude McMillan, Jalen McMillan, I got to throw that out there. That was my dude, man. He's killing it. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see what Atlanta does. It is good stuff there. We definitely like both these backs, but Bijan is a good one. And so is Gibby. So flipping gears to wide receiver time, we're talking Tyreek the Cheetah. He put in a lot of news this week on his exit interviews, talking a bunch of ish, man, saying I'm done, posting his head on Antonio Brown's body as he's doing the deuces in the end zone. I mean, he was obviously, visibly frustrated leaving. First time missing the playoffs. First time in his career since his rookie season not cracking that 1,000 yards. I mean, saying he's done with Miami but hasn't gone on record to, request a trade just yet. They kept McDaniel. They kept Greer as the head coach and general manager combo. I mean, he was 81 for 959 and 6 TDs this year. A lot of Tua injuries, a lot of Tyler Huntley, Skylar Thompson. I think I would be frustrated as well with those guys. I mean, what are we talking here? Is Tyreek washed? I mean, he was dealing with that wrist injury. I believe he's 30 years old, will be 31, I believe, in the season next year as well. So, I mean, the age is definitely creeping up on the man. I mean, we didn't see the explosive Tyreek is kind of where I'm asking this question this year. And, I mean, was it due in part to him not putting in the effort because he knew Tua was not on the field? But when Tua came back, we still seen him get locked up a lot. Wasn't putting up those Tyreek numbers that we're used to. And I think, if a divorce is coming, he goes to another team. There's two topics here that I want to talk about. Is he leaving Miami? And, I mean, is he kind of, tapering off in his career to where we can say, the wash is starting to come?
I think he's definitely leaving. I think that that exit meeting was speaking volumes. He looked like somebody trying to leave breadcrumbs or trying to like give hints, and then realizing like, you know what, I pretty much already said what what I'm saying, so I might as well just say it. And he kind of just said it like, yeah, man, like I'm done. Like I can't keep doing this. But he didn't want to. It felt like he didn't also want to throw Tua or the quarterbacks necessarily under the bus, but basically say like the quarterback play is not good enough, and I can't do it anymore. I've tried to overhype it. I've tried to oversell it. We tried to talk about 2,000 yards last year. Now this year I can't even crack 1,000. I said this guy throws a better ball than Mahomes. All this stuff he's been saying since he got to Miami. I think it all kind of came to a head this year. Another injury from Tua, showing that it also showed that the Miami Dolphins do not have a contingency plan. Having those backup quarterbacks, knowing that you have a injury-prone quarterback, and not just a quarterback that's injury-prone, but a quarterback that is literally one hit away from his career ending. You'd think they'd have a better contingency plan at quarterback. Like even my Eagles, I think, have a better contingency plan with Kenny Pickett. So that's saying a lot, and I think that's a part of his frustration, just knowing that he's so tied to the quarterback, and his quarterback is one that he doesn't necessarily can trust long term and trust that he'll be available. And if your availability is not there, then that's your number one ability. So I think that he's definitely leaving that breadcrumb for us to know like he's ready to roll. He knows he only has a few years left of elite possibility in his game. Most receivers that are speed predicated, his size and stuff, they don't turn 35 and keep dominating the league. That's something that's for the tight ends and the quarterbacks and the guys that are more savvy, strictly route runners, strictly leverage players like a Larry Fitzgerald, if someone like that comes to mind, or even a Jason Witten, or my guy Zach Ertz. He's getting up there, but leverage play. They were never speed demons. Someone that's a speed demon, once that goes, you're gonna have a hard time playing in this league, in my opinion. Tyreek's never been the most savvy route runner, so unless he develops that at this stage, it is going to start to creep up on him. But I do think the talent is still there. The speed still has to be there in terms of what he's compared to. He may have lost a tiny step, but compared to what he's going against, I still think he's, elite speed. Just Miami's not the spot for him right now. I think mentally he checked out. And like we were just saying, the injuries, trying to rely on a quarterback that you can't rely on, losing seasons, add that all up, this guy's just not ready to keep battling. And he's never struck me as a guy that, for lack of a better term, he's not necessarily a team guy. He's not a guy that's going to be like, I'm down no matter what. I'll go down with the ship, captain of this team. It all rides with me. I think he's a me guy more so, where it's like, hey, man, I'm pretty good. I don't know if you guys think so, but I think so. So if this isn't working here, get me somewhere else, and I'll show you that I'm still pretty good.
Hard to argue. And I mean, I've been back and forth on this. I watched some, tape on him as well. And I mean, it was different because I don't know if it was the wrist injury that really, precluded him from gaining that separation this year. I mean, you watch the last 5 games and you're going to see him struggle to get open. It's weird, man. You've never seen this from a Tyreek Hill. Like he would legit get, like, especially on those 9s and the 7s, like he was struggling. The guys were right on his hip, and I get it too. It wasn't getting him the football. So maybe it is true. I mean, like he maybe, checked out as the season was going. He looked, good versus Green Bay when they won that contest. He caught that lucky, fluky touchdown in the end zone. Got me a fantasy win. Thank you, Tyreek. But, I mean, it's one of those situations that, how much effort was he playing? Waddle was dealing with injuries all season long. He didn't have his running mate. The OBJ thing just did not work out. I'm not surprised with that one either. But, I mean, maybe even Coach McDaniel was figured out a little bit. I mean, it was nice, window dressing, putting a little sugar on the sauce, and it just maybe everyone started figuring it out just a little bit more, and he just wasn't as creative this year getting these guys open because, I mean, last year with the 2,000 yards, like you're saying, they were uber creative. They couldn't figure out what the hell they were doing. They're doing motions like, coming across the line where he's going full speed and then turning upfield. Amazing stuff that we hadn't seen. A lot of teams are doing that now. But, I mean, the pick plays weren't there. I mean, and you had a supportive piece like a Jonnu Smith basically becoming your, third wide receiver type of player that they've been dying for on this team, and they just could not put it together. And I understand with the Tua injuries does put a big, issue in their team dynamic and how they're going to move forward. Paying Tua wasn't the smartest situation. I didn't like the contract either, but in this case, look how many teams this year are going to be vying for quarterbacks in a pretty weak quarterback class coming out of the NFL draft as well. They're hooked with Tua for the next many years. And, I mean, if Tyreek is out, this changes the entire landscape of how these Miami Dolphins are going to probably be. It's going to be Achane, Waddle, and Jonnu.
Yeah, it changes everything, and it won't be an easy move, right? I'm not sure what his hit is on the cap and what the dead cap would be, but
It's pretty big.
it's not something you can just just snap your fingers and move a player like Tyreek with that contract. But it does sound like he's dead serious. Now, it comes down to Greer and the coaching staff and what they think and how they can move forward with this, and if they're actually going to buy into what his demands or if they're going to try and smooth things over. Because emotions run hot when the season just ends. Things can calm down as the off season progresses. You start to have some optimism, start to see what the moves are going to be for next year. So there is some hope that they can keep him. But the way they were playing, like you're saying, maybe Mike McDaniel's got figured out. Also, I had another thought that Tyreek's been in a winning locker room now. Let's not overlook that. He's played with a winning quarterback. He's played with a legend, in my opinion, at coach and offensive coordinator in Andy Reid, and just a winning culture. So he knows what that looks like. Coming over to Miami, he hit the ground running. So maybe he ignored the culture, but I think he's starting to see like this ain't right here. Like we're kind of loose over here, like we don't really seem to have a direction. We're picking up players like OBJ, and it literally is just for headlines. There's no usage. There's no real effort to get him involved in the offense. Guys like Raheem Mostert were hits last year, completely phased out this year, and it was literally Achane or like no run game. So I think he's kind of looking around, wondering like what is happening in this locker room, and what is the trajectory of this franchise. In my opinion, it does not look like it's going up whatsoever. And they have to contend with your Buffalo Bills that are the kings of that AFC East. And they don't look like they're going to be able to compete with them anytime soon. And if New England and Drake May get their thing rolling in the direction that they should get it rolling in with a quarterback like that, Miami can find themselves in a very, very tough spot for a long time.
It's very true. And, I mean, it's reminiscent to me of is the old Washington Commanders when they were the Redskins. It is paying guys high-priced dollars to just be the names. I mean, how many years did we see the Washington team be that type of team? I mean, they paid what was his name? The defensive lineman.
Albert Hainsworth.
Thank you. And, I mean, just boatloads of money back then. It was over $100 million where nobody was getting that kind of money, and it never really panned out outside of a Clinton Portis. Man, I'm dating myself. But, I mean, Clinton Portis, outside of that, you don't really remember any high-priced talent coming to Washington and succeeding. They in Miami, it was they paid the Chubbs. They had the issues with that young defensive lineman that keeps going down with injuries. He had the Achilles, and then and then the ACL injury. Phillips, that's his name. And I mean, look at you, man. I'm fading for names. This guy's kind of bailing me out. Thank you, sir. But, I mean, he continuously gets injured. Chubb couldn't play because of the injury. Jalen Ramsey's aging out already. So, I mean, Holland looked like he kind of took a step back this year. You didn't see him as dominant as you had in seasons past. So there is a lot of issues. You got a lot of money tied up on this team on both the offensive and the defensive side, and your offensive line is still a problem where your quarterback is getting lit up. So, I mean, the bright spots on this offense right now are the Achane, I always get his name wrong, but I'm telling y'all, Tyreek leaves this team, it's going to be a massive problem for the Fish because I'm a Waddle supporter, man. Waddle time. I love me some Waddle, but do I believe he could be a wide receiver one? I do believe there's potential, but we've seen that before without a Tyreek. He puts up numbers, but is he overly dominant? He requires somebody to at least take some pressure off. So, I mean, if Tyreek leaves, you're going to have a major issue, but where does Tyreek go if we do see this? I'm curious about that one as well, if you got any other thoughts on that.
Man, I really don't know. The first thought I had was an NFC team, just
Mm.
just because it tends to be how things go around there. They don't like to trade within division or within conference if you can avoid it. And then what team would actually want to do that? Speaking of Washington, how you brought them up, they are an intriguing thought because they're a team that is ascending. They definitely think they're in that window even this year to make a push. I believe in Jaden Daniels. We've gone over that a few times. You pair Tyreek with a
Ooh.
player like Scary Terry
Oh, mama.
and Jaden, and you got something there at least for a year or two. So that's something that's off the top of my head I can see. And they're a team that might actually be interested in taking that shot. Putting the financial commitment behind it and saying, "Hey, man, we got a quarterback on a rookie deal. This is where we can make those risks, take those shots, and see what happens."
Yeah, I can see that, man. Rookie deal quarterbacks, I think it's like $28 million cap hit. So it's going to be tough, man. Going to be tough for those fish to get rid of them. But things are pointing up in other directions. Young on the rise head coach, potential prodigy, Ben Johnson. He's getting interviews all of the wazoo, man. I mean, we're seeing Joe Brady getting some interviews. Leave my guy alone. He's not leaving Buffalo. Did you catch Josh Allen's comment? They said, what is good about Joe Brady? He says, absolutely nothing. Leave him alone. I thought that was awesome. But Ben Johnson, he's going to be getting interviews all over the place. And I think this is a very important coaching hire for some of these teams. And I'm highlighting the ones with a younger quarterback or a potential draft spot to get a quarterback. New England, Drake May. Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams. Las Vegas Raiders, they don't have anybody at this point, but they're going to have a draft. New York Jets likely departing from an Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. Potential still there with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson with another new quarterback, so we will see. And then the Tennessee Titans, Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, they got the first overall pick in this draft. That's very enticing for a young coach trying to put his stamp on a new squad if he is going to take the job. But it's very interesting. If I had my choices, it would be New England or Chicago. Likely not New England because we're probably going to see Vrabel go to New England. He is probably the front runner at this point. Chicago's very, very interesting. New England's very, very interesting. I think he could do wonders with either one of Caleb Williams or Drake May, and the ascension of these teams could be very rapidly fast moving up with him. But again, we've seen offensive great minds go be a head coach and bust because they can't manage both. He just got to get the right people around him and then, pick one of these teams with a young quarterback that could potentially do some damage.
Yeah, I think there's some great options for Ben. He was the hot ticket last year. I think it's pretty cool that he went back because he said, job's not done in Detroit. Let me get back there and have one more opportunity to do something. And that goes to show his level of confidence, not just in himself, but in his position currently. I think he knows without putting it into the ether that, last year he was the hottest name in the market, and that's not going to go away, right? A lot of people are like, oh man, you can't just do that. You can't turn down these opportunities and da da da. Man, he knew exactly what he was doing. Went back to Detroit, another dominant year. They locked up the number one seed. He's right back in that same category as the number one hottest name in the market. So all that talk about he can't just no, he knows what he's doing. I think he's definitely going to be selective because of that. He showed that last year, in my opinion, by going back to Detroit. So he's not just looking to jump on the first opportunity that arises. I think he's actually going to be very selective with the coaching opportunity that he chooses. And like you're saying, I think it's going to be around the quarterbacks, right? The vacancies that are there, they're huge. Going to coach for Chicago and Caleb Williams would be a massive upgrade for him in terms of like the opportunity, having that quarterback there, having a young guy to be tied to, and they can see what they can do together. Plus, he has the knowledge of the division. I think that you can't understate that. He's been playing in that division or coaching in that division, for the last few years. He's very familiar with the defenses in that division. He knows exactly what to do against his own defense that he goes against in coaching every day in Detroit. Then he'd know exactly what to do against the Minnesota and the Green Bay defense. So that's a big tick to me, a big check mark, I guess, or a pro for him to go to Chicago. And then for New England, I'd say Drake May is extremely intriguing prospect to go coach. You get out of the division, which might be also something that he wants to do. Just as much as you want to compete against that NFC North, he may want to just get out of that division too, just knowing how competitive it is. We see what they're doing right now. Two teams that win 15 games, one gets the first seed, one has to go play wildcard weekend. That's absolutely insane.
Insanity.
So he may look at that and be like, you know what? This is kind of crazy. Detroit's definitely here to stay. Packers are on the rise. And if Chicago hits their coaching staff and the quarterback figures it out, they'll be on the rise. They could have 4 legit teams in that division. That would be a reason to kind of stay away from it. Shoot over to the AFC East, where they've been struggling. The Jets look like trash. We just talked about the Dolphins and how they might lose Tyreek, so they could be in a whole lot of trouble. So that could be a very intriguing division for him to go into, grab a young quarterback, take some money because they have a lot of cap space, and turn that whole franchise around, turn that whole offense around. So that's one I definitely think if I'm him, I'm leaning that way. And if you're not going for the quarterback that's already in play, I'd go to Tennessee. One, I think you're going to get a longer rope. I think you'd probably get even a longer rope than in New England or Chicago. I think Tennessee, they don't really have a lot of expectations right now. He'd be the biggest name that they've had in a long time. They're kind of trending in completely wrong direction. So I think that ownership would look at him like kind of like a savior coming in there. He'd be the biggest face essentially on the roster right now as a coach instead of a player. And then whoever he brings in as a quarterback, whether it be free agency, whether it be through the draft, I think he'll be able to develop them and kind of his own style. It'll be his own footprint in that Tennessee region. And like I said, I think he'd get a little bit more rope too. So in terms of just having an opportunity to fail, I think that would be the best place for him. New England would be second to me in terms of opportunity and the rope that they'd probably send to him. Chicago just seems crazy. You don't know what could happen there. He could go there, and if things don't turn around right away, him and Caleb could be in a whole world of trouble. And, they could be moving on, looking for a third coach, even though that sounds crazy. But they've been doing that there. So I wouldn't bank on Chicago having that longevity or giving him a long rope to succeed or fail.
No, that's very true. I mean, moving on from Justin Fields to Caleb and seeing worse results. I mean, Ryan Poles, GM of the Bears, he's in some hot water. I'm surprised they kept him. I really am. He's hit some good drafts, but he's had some misses, man. And the fact that you decided Justin Fields was not your guy, you ship him out, and then you go draft Caleb. And I knew, okay, and we all could see that. I mean, Caleb is a good, talented quarterback. And a lot of people, okay, he holds the ball too long. Yes, he does at certain times. Yes, he does. I'm not going to make apologies for the man. But give this man an O-line, okay? You got to understand, he's the most sacked quarterback in the league, and it's not just because he holds the ball all the time. He's literally doing a 3-step drop, and he's got 3 guys in his face. What do you want the guy to do? But New England, to me, is the most attractive spot, especially with the fact that you got, and this pains me to say as a Bills fan, I love Drake May. You know this. He was my guy coming out of the draft. I absolutely love the skill set. He's like a baby Josh Allen out there. The way he plays football, the arm talent is there. He runs like a Josh, but maybe a little slower. But it's so similar in likeness. And you got a draft coming where you could potentially get yourself a Travis Hunter. Travis did say he's going to go play DB likely at the Combine. He doesn't know if he's going to play wide receiver. That's an interesting it's a thing to watch as well. But if Travis does decide to play wide receiver, you team him up with a Drake May. I mean, I like me some Kayshon Boutte. I think he's a good, secondary wide receiver. He was an LSU guy as well. Attitude was always his issue, but he turned it up the last 3 games. I like his game a lot as well. And there's a lot of building pieces you can make in New England, especially with this draft. It's going to be very much top-heavy for them. They're going to get a lot of, young, top, elite, talented prospects. New England would be, if I'm Ben, New England would be the one where I'm calling being like, I kind of want to go here. It's a good spot.
Yeah, if ownership is looking for him, Kraft, they're going to give him at least a 3-year run here to really get a footprint 100%. In there and turn things around. But he definitely would be my candidate if I'm New England. I think it'd be a great match. Like you said, they have the quarterback, and that's what you're always looking for. He's the offensive genius. That's what the quarterback is always looking for. So it looks like a perfect marriage.
Agreed, 100%. But we got Wildcard weekend, playoffs. We got playoffs, baby. I love me some playoffs. We're going to break these down quickly, give a little synopsis, We usually do the point spread picks, but I don't think we're going to have enough time today to, really go down deep, and it still is early in the week. So, first one on Saturday, the LA Chargers taking on the Houston Texans, -3 for those Chargers right now as they open. This is such an interesting show. Houston, they come back down to earth. CJ Stroud, sophomore slump. We got, Herbie. He's starting to get some guys back and healthy. JK looked good, and Harbaugh, Coach Harbaugh, man, he comes in year 1, turns the whole damn thing around. Coach Staley, you got to be embarrassed, man. Basically the same team, and they're going to the playoffs. For me, this is a very interesting show. It's in Houston. I like the defense of, the Chargers. Stroud is like a Caleb Williams, getting sacked more than any quarterbacks in the league right now. I'm leaning towards those Chargers in this one.
Oh, this is the easiest game of the week to me. This is a lock. I'm
Ooh,
100% LA Chargers. Lock that in. No doubt about it for me.
wow.
I think that's the easiest call of the week. One team's been trending horribly, and that's the Houston Texans. I haven't liked anything they've done on paper the last like roughly 2 months. Um, I feel like they're a team that's kind of in grieving. Like
Mm.
it sounds a little harsh, but that's how they feel to me. Like they're kind of just going through the motions. Like they lost Diggs and they lost Tank and they've been regressing and the O line's not playing well. CJ's getting hit. Like Mixon was in and out of the lineup, just banged up. When he's in and he's running well, he was running well, but he got banged up and then he started to regress. And I just don't like anything that's going on with that team right now offensively. And then on the flip side, like you were saying, like Staley, come on, bro. Like this team, they just switched coaches and they went from like one of the worst teams in the league to a playoff team to a dominant team. Like that should tell everyone that doesn't understand football how much coaching matters. It matters. It matters. It matters. The culture, the concepts, timing, what you do when you have a lead versus what you do when you're trailing, and the decision, all that matters. And one guy was obviously horrendous at it,
Yeah.
and the other guy that's in the building now is pretty darn good at it. He has a pretty good track record. He's got the belief of his players. I saw the way QJ played. It was week 18, but hey, if he's going to play even remotely close to
Yeah,
that
right?
with McConkey and Dobbins, this is a team now. This is a team, and they have a good defense. They've had, I think, number one defense all year in terms of scoring
Mm.
defense overall. So I don't foresee this Houston Texans team really being able to put up enough points in this game, and I don't see the Chargers making mistakes to give them short fields and give them opportunity to put up some cheap points. So I'm 100% on the Chargers with this one. This is my easiest pick of the week.
Ooh, easiest of the week. And Coach Staley's sitting on his couch right now being like, why the hell are you bringing up my name? I didn't do anything wrong, man. Sorry, Coach. Pittsburgh at Baltimore, -9.5, the second game on Saturday. And, like we were saying earlier, offline, it was, I said, if the line is 9.5, I'm inclined to take the line at +9.5 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, that said as well, I'll even go on a rope here, man. I will not be shocked if these Steelers upset the Baltimore Ravens. We've seen, it's no Derrick Henry, obviously, first time Henry in the playoffs with the Ravens. But we've seen Lamar in the playoffs. No hit on Lamar. I'm not trying to be disrespecting you, but you got to prove it, man. If Josh was doing this, everyone would be talking the same ish on Josh as well, that he can't win a playoff game. Yes, Lamar has won a playoff game, and I'm not saying he's going to stumble in this contest. They look too damn good. They're very much high octane. Somebody's going to get upset. And this would be the one for me if there was going to be an upset on Wildcard weekend. The Steelers, they play in the same division. They know each other extremely well. Season series was 1-1. But Pittsburgh won 18-16. I believe that was with Justin Fields, not Russ Wilson, if I'm not mistaken. But, okay, yes, Pittsburgh has looked like crap. I'm not going to lie. The offense can't move the football right now, but they're going to go into full clock control mode if it's me. They got to get some shorter passes. One thing I do not understand about Arthur Smith, why do you not use Pat Freiermuth, man? This guy is a killer, and you're basically leaving him in second gear. Like, what's your problem, man? Pickens looked like he made some business decisions last week and he was shaving points, but I think it's going to change this week. I'm going to go on a limb and I'm going to say Pittsburgh on the upset.
Yeah, you're bold. I know that Lamar questions they're real. The playoff questions are real, but that's bold. I can't follow you with that one. As far as I'll go is the +9. I think that's not a crazy bet because it is a rival, division rival, and because Zay Flowers is going to miss this game and he's a massive part of that offense, just in terms of his mismatching, in terms of how quickly he can get open, in terms of them using him in the screen game. There's going to be a regression in the passing game for Lamar and them, but nah, I can't follow you with that. I've watched enough Lamar Jackson over the years. I've watched enough Ravens that I don't think they're going to choke in this game. The games that he chokes in, the games where you see him in the playoffs where he gets rattled or he looks like jittery, those are the games where I think the expectations are so high and he knows he needs to perform at a high level in order to win that game. So when he's going against, like a Patrick Mahomes or someone of that nature, where he thinks like, I got to score, this is it, everyone's watching, and then he starts to overplay. This is against Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers and a very, very lackluster offense. And George Pickens, who's been taking time off, I don't even know what he's doing lately, right? He's got all kinds of issues. Because of that type of team that he's going against and that offense, I think Lamar understands that I don't need to be crazy. I don't need to be Superman. We don't even need to score more than maybe 20 points to win this game.
True.
I just need to not be making the mistakes. So they'll just lean on the run game. They'll just run Lamar, run Derek, couple throws to the tight end. I think it's going to be a very simple offensive game, and I don't think it needs to be overly schemed because I do not see Pittsburgh putting up too many points. So I think the Ravens, if they lose this game, it'll be the biggest abomination. I just can't see it happen.
They cannot lose this game, Baltimore. They have to win. It's one of those
this year.
It's one of those situations. They're likely going to pull it off, but if the upset's coming, I'm taking them this week. The Buffalo Bills, baby, my Bills Mafia, -8.5 taking on these Denver Broncos. Bo knows. Let's see if Bo knows how to win in the playoffs. And I mean, you got to understand, okay, I'm going to give credit where it's due. Sean Payton, you get all the credit this season. You had a plan. You master planned the whole thing. You said Bo was my guy. You handpicked him, and you made him into potentially the rookie of the year. Like, kudos to that. You don't see that very often, and they're in the freaking playoffs. But my Buffalo Bills, I won't lie if I'm going to sit here and tell you I'm not a little scared. It's not that I'm scared of the team. It's always playoffs, man. The stress is very high. 8.5 points feels a little bit high for me, overall. But I do believe the Buffalo Bills at home, they're gonna take care of business. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league. They're gonna halt. Denver's very good at coming after the quarterback. So we'll see which line does.
Number one in sacks.
That's right.
Number one in sacks.
We'll see which team does take over in this game. It's a big one, man. So the run game should be very, prevalent for the Bills. The fact that the Broncos can't necessarily run the football with high, opportunity, Bo's going to have to play some good game here. And they got a lot of wide receivers. And I think that kind of does give me the pause just a little bit where if you lock up Sutton, you do got Vele, you do got Franklin, you got Mims, who I love, and he's coming on the ups. It's going to be a very good contest, but I'm still taking my Bills, obviously.
Are you taking the Bills on the spread, or are you just taking the Bills on the money line?
I'm still going to pause on that one for now. I'm going to say money line, yes. I'll have to do some more debating in my head for the spread.
Yeah, I definitely take the Bills to win this game. I actually see this a little closer to what we were just saying with the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. Although those are division rivals and you guys aren't, I just see the similar styles in fact in the way that I don't have any doubts that the Buffalo Bills look at this game as a must-win, like a game we cannot stumble, we cannot make mistakes offensively, turning the ball over. So they're going to play a very, I don't want to call it safe, but I want to say like a very structured offense. They're going to not take too many unnecessary risks, run the ball, keep the defense off the field. When Bo Nix is on the field, I don't think they're going to be too worried about him in terms of just throwing the ball all over the place. And you guys have a pretty good run. I'm sorry, you haven't had a pretty good run D, but you're going against an offense that hasn't had a consistent run game. So their weakness is not going to be able to exploit the fact that you guys haven't had a great run defense. And I think that's going to bode well for you. I don't like the offensive matchup for Denver going against the Buffalo Bills on the road here. And that's why I got to go with Buffalo. Although, just like, you got to be afraid. Everything comes down to one big play here and there, and it could change the trajectory of a game. It is playoffs, one and done. So we do know, that's what we love football, because anything can happen on that given Sunday.
Anything happens.
But where I'm going to put my money and put my mouth, I got to go with Buffalo. 100%. Just like we're saying, Lamar Jackson just can't lose that game. I feel the exact same way about Josh Allen.
100%.
This game against this team, this is not a game he's going to be all jittery. He's going to feel like he has to go shot for shot with anybody. I think he understands like the situation he's in at home. So yeah, they just can't lose that game. They're not going to lose it.
100% agree. It's a must-win situation. But this one's interesting. Green Bay Packers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, -4.5 for your Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. Potentially Jordan Love. He may not suit up. He said, I'm hopeful to play. I think it is semantics. I don't foresee him not playing in this game. But, 4.5, I'm pretty easy on this one. Jalen Hurts likely going to clear concussion protocols as well before this contest. Saquon's been running like a bat out of hell. 2,000 yards. Congrats, Saquon. And 4.5 and the Eagles. I'm pretty easy on this one. I'm taking the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't like to go too easy on my Eagles. We always have to to play with the fantasy gods and the football gods. We don't ever want to feel too comfortable because they will surprise you and slap you back into reality.
Yeah, they
So
will.
I don't like to get too comfortable. But with that said, I'm kind of like you. I like where we're trending. I like how our defense has been playing. I like that we got to rest a week and just focus on pretty much this matchup. And this is going to come down to the run game. I honestly think if Josh Jacobs cannot have a significant impact on this game, the Eagles are going to dominate this game in the trenches, and we should win this game. And that's pretty much how I feel very strongly about that. But if Josh Jacobs gets loose and he starts breaking some runs and stuff, it could change everything because that will open up, that will unlock Jordan Love, and when he gets confident, he's a dangerous quarterback, right? When he's back there feeling the love, as you like to put it, he'll just start slinging that thing. He'll throw into triple coverage to friggin' Jaden Reed, and he'll come down with the ball. So we've seen that in the past. He's not afraid of any throw. So that's where I would be hesitant if they can get that run game going, and then they can start, play action, draw us in, and start throwing that thing all over the field. But I have a feeling we have a good scheme for that. I like the way we've been playing defense. Vic Fangio has been fantastic as the years gone on. I've really loved his defensive schemes, and I think we will lock down that run game. And if they can't run, I don't think they can win.
Defensively, you guys have been balling since like week number 7, so it's been a very tough one. And I mean, feeling the love for love, I got some love for love, but not this week because Jaden Reed has basically been, a ghost out there as well. I don't know what the hell's going on with this past game right now, and no Christian Watson, obviously with the ACL injury. I'm taking the Eagles. It's an easy bet for me, but the Washington Commanders, the Commies, were taking on Baker Mayfield and these Bucks. -3 for the Bucks. I mean, they had to claw and scrape their way in to win the division. But Baker Mayfield and his 40 touchdowns. Love the ascension of my dude, Jalen McMillan. Mike Evans still playing very well. But, I mean, your dude, Bucky Irving, and it is his dude. He was preaching it throughout the entire draft process. This guy was his guy saying he's going to blow up, and he did. Bucky looks absolutely amazing. I mean, with the tandem, it's like a lesser Monty and Gibby show in Tampa Bay in Florida with Rashad White and Bucky Irving, and then they could even sprinkle in some Sean Tucker if you want from time to time. I like this team a lot. I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will push the Commanders quite to the edge, but I mean, Jaden Daniels, the interesting aspect is that you don't even really know what their full identity is yet because they do so many things multiply with it. Cliff Kingsbury. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay, but I won't be shocked if these Commies do pull it out.
Yeah. So how we were talking earlier about the Chargers and the Texans and not being the easiest call, this is the polar opposite for me. To me, this is the toughest call of the weekend, of Wildcard weekend. I really can see this. I have narratives that explain why either team would win this. I can see this literally going either way. I think this is a fantastic quarterback matchup. I can't wait to see these two quarterbacks play football. They've had great seasons, great stories. I love the way both of them play. I've been preaching Baker for a while now. I've always liked him. I thought he got the short end back there in Cleveland. I love the turnaround. And then Jaden's just special. We both been talking about him all season from the combine on. And I actually think Jaden Daniels hasn't even given us the full Jaden Daniels experience yet.
Agreed.
I think they kind of held him back as much as we might not believe that because they ran him so much. I still think they were holding him back and waiting to unleash that for when it really matters most. Like right now, the playoffs, you can let it all out. There is no tomorrow. It's going to be a scary player to go against when he has nothing to live for, as they like to say, and he can just cut it all loose. Kid's special, and they don't have a full year of tape on him to really dissect what he's capable of. That's scary. We all know that. We always say year 2, year 3, when you can really break down these unique talents and their tape, then you can kind of figure them out. But year 1, first playoff game, whew, Todd Bowles, good luck. I think this is going to be a special game, and I don't know which way I'm leaning, man. Because I have to pick one here, I'm going to pick Washington. But this one's tough. And honestly, I'm only picking Washington because I realized all my picks are favorites, and there's never a weekend where every favorite wins. So I got to find an upset here. That's probably where I'm going to find my upset. But, man, that game is going to be tough.
It's very close, man. And the inexperience is kind of where I'm going. They're both not necessarily playoff-heavy teams, but there is a little bit more experience on the Buccaneers, which is why I'm leaning in that direction. Final one on Monday Night Football. We got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the LA Rams. I mean, we've seen the Rams put up 40-plus points on my Buffalo Bills. They look like world beaters. They got themselves a division. But they've cooled off, man. They haven't scored as many points in the last, since playing the Buffalo Bills, actually. I think that's
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah, so,
Yep.
I mean, Cooper Kupp has basically been irrelevant, and, I mean, maybe they were saving him for the playoffs. I don't know. Kyron still's good, but the Minnesota Vikings losing to Detroit in the fashion they did to not win the first seed, I think they're going to be playing with a massive chip on their shoulder, even on the road. I think JJ absolutely obliterates this improving LA Rams defense. Love me some Kitchens. You guys know I was all about Kitchens. I said it's crazy he fell in the draft, but I'm taking Minnesota -1 to close out Wildcard weekend for me. I think Minnesota's moving on.
That one's another one that I find tough to call. Minnesota's, man, I feel bad for them. That city just can't get that one big game that they need to give them that good feeling. That was a tough way to lose. They got absolutely blown out by the end of it. The score wasn't really an indicator of how close that game was. That was a defensive battle. I love the way that they did play on defense. I think they went for a few fourth downs unnecessarily. They kind of came back to haunt them in terms of how the game played and the way that Detroit was able to play the score now that they didn't have to chase certain points. But I'm worried about that loss. I'm a little worried about Sam Darnold. Now he's back into that another big spot, win or go home, all the pressure in the world. He knows he's hearing about it all week long. Like, he was playing great all year, but it felt like he was playing with house money, right? Like, the season started, preseason started, and we were ready to anoint JJ McCarthy as the starting quarterback. A lot of people were leaning that way. And then the injury happened, and Sam was basically thrusted as like, you're going to play no matter what. So just go do what you can do. And I think he played with house money. He exceeded all expectations. But now that those expectations are real and like right in his face, I'm a little worried, man. I trust Matthew Stafford in this spot. I trust him under pressure. The QB scales that they like to say, I would lean Matthew Stafford with a full healthy offense than I would lean with my guy Sam. So I love JJ too, you know that, but I'm gonna lean the Rams on this. I'm gonna go with the coaching, and I'm gonna go with the quarterback. But this is very close. They both have good quarterbacks this year. They both have phenomenal coaches. These are two indoor teams, fast track teams. So it'll be interesting. This might be a fun game, high scoring game.
Agreed. I love it, man. It's a good set of games, and I mean, we're running out of time here before the clock pinches out on us, but it's going to be unbelievable. I love football. The stress is going to be massive. I mean, if I'm not back next week, it's because of my Bills. I'm not even going to say that. We're winning the Super Bowl. I'm not even going to put that, hex on my boys. There. I'm not doing it, man. But always good times, man, having you on the show. Now that the off season is here, hopefully we do a lot more of this because it's always good stuff, man.
Great stuff, man. Have a great one. Good luck this weekend, and
you as well.
Let's go Eagles.
You as well, man. And we'll get out of here anyway. Nevertheless, as always, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in those comments, give me your thoughts. Enjoy football this weekend, and we'll see you next time. I am out.